And welcome in to yet another episode of the Blitz podcast. I'm your host today, Mr. Kane Schwartz, joined by Tyler North in the booth today to recap some of NFL's major storylines or headlines, takeaways, whatever you want to call it. It's called by many names as we've done this segment throughout the years. But yeah, we're taking away some of our biggest storylines, headlines from Week 7's action, and bringing them to you today on a Tuesday after Week 7 football. So how we feel? You gotta feel pretty good about the Vikes' big win last night, dude. Let's hash out that for a second. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you liked that. You liked that. You liked that. That was a major win. For the Vikings. You know, it puts the season back into consideration now, because 2 weeks ago we were like, is this going to be looking into the Caleb Williams sweepstakes? You know, do we trade Kirk Cousins? Do we just clean house? Do we just sit Jefferson the rest of the year? But now, you know, last week beating the Bears or whatever. But man, after a loss for the 49ers against the Browns, I assumed that this was going to be a loss for the Vikings. But, you know, with no Trent Williams and no Deebo Samuel, the 49ers definitely look like a they have shown some holes and some gaps, I would say, and we can dive into that in a little bit. But yeah, man, what a huge win for the Vikes. Kirk Cousins was dealing, man. He had the one interception early on.
Prime time Kirko.
I know, man. And Brock Purdy hadn't lost a primetime game, I think, yet, and Kirk Cousins really doesn't do much on primetime, but man, he was dealing yesterday. He had, like I said, he had the one interception early on that was a 50-50 ball between Ward and Addison. And then funny enough, later on in the end of the first half, you know, with the deep ball to Addison, was able to win that 50-50 ball that probably should have been an interception. But other than that, I mean, he was zoned in all night, and man, as much as I want to talk about Cousins, that offensive line came to play, man. Darisaw and O'Neal looked great on the outside.
Madison looked a lot better running behind the line.
Well, and then you've also got Dalton Reisner, who came in for Ezra Cleveland, who was a pickup a couple weeks ago, and they gave him the start, and he looked great. And, man, Ed Ingram, I got to give the man some credit. He has come along the last couple weeks and provided a big staple point on that offensive line. And, you know, with the Vikings, their schedule definitely eases up a little bit here, because they've got the Packers, Falcons, Saints here the next 3 weeks, all three winnable games. They've gone through a really tough part of their schedule, you know, where they had the Chiefs and the Eagles and the 49ers, three, you know, Super Bowl caliber teams in the first 7 weeks of the season, and they're able to escape that. And, you know, they're 3-4. Obviously, if they had beaten the Bucks or the Chargers or both, which were both winnable games, the Vikings would probably be in the lead for this division. I don't know if they're going to catch the Lions. They control their own destiny because they still play the Lions twice. But the playoffs are definitely in reach for the Vikings. And if you're looking at teams like them or the Saints or the Bucks, I mean, the Vikings definitely look like the better team out of those. And you're going to get Jefferson back here within the next couple of weeks. You know, if you can survive these next 3 weeks, like I was saying, and go, I mean, 2-1 would be expected. If you go 1-2, it's not going to be good. But man, if you can go 3-0 and Jefferson's coming back, you are in prime position to really make a run at this thing. So yeah, unfortunately, this is what the Vikings do, and I'm bought back in, and I know how this is going to end, because it does every single freaking year. But for now, yeah, man, what a moment on Monday Night Football to secure the win. A 7-point home underdog, and we're able to pull out the win. So very, very happy for the Vikings. I thought Kevin O'Connell called a great game, used timeouts. At the end of that first half, he used the timeouts exactly when you were supposed to use them, was able to get the ball back, and had just enough time to manufacture a touchdown going into half, and really, you know, propel them into that lead that turned out to be insurmountable for the 49ers. So overall, like I said, really ecstatic, but the parity in the NFL is unmatched, man. We're seeing it week in and week out, with teams that are heavy favorites being upset by teams that they shouldn't be upset by. And you got a guy like P.J. Walker for the Browns, who's now 2-0 basically in the last 2 weeks, who was an XFL quarterback. So as much as you want to say that you've got a handle on this league, you don't, because it surprises you every single week.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, week in, week out, this is the NFL. And we love it for that reason. But yeah, impressive showing from the Vikings last night. I don't know what the status of Jordan Addison's injury is. Hopefully.
It was just cramps.
Okay, awesome. So, I mean.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
Also, outside of NFL, man, We've got 2 Game 7s with baseball. I know we've been chatting about it. We had the Rangers taking care of the Astros last night, which I know to the general sports world interest, everybody's happy the Astros are finally gone and over with. And tonight we've got Phillies and D-backs in a Game 7. So it's exciting times for MLB. You got NBA starting up tonight. Hockey's in full session. We were 2 weeks away from college basketball, baby. So it's a fun time of the year. And like we said, we're almost halfway through the NFL season, which is insane to think about.
I know. And it's almost sad at this point. But you mentioned it's a great time to be a sports fan for sure. Got another Game 7 in the not conference series, but the NLCS, which is I see CS and I want to say conference series, but it's just championship series, which
that's basically what it is. Yeah. It's a league series. It's a conference series. It's what it is. But yeah, it's going to be exciting tonight. Phillies and Diamondbacks. I think it's 8:00 tonight at Citizens Bank in Philly. So Philly's kind of the place to be. We've seen that over the last couple of years, I feel, and it's starting to turn into title town, but they don't have the titles to back that up. So yeah, that's a nice little jab at all those Philly fans. So
had to get that one out for sure. But all right, let's go ahead and dive into our headlines, our takeaways from Week 7's NFL action. And we got to start with the Baltimore Ravens having an impressive showing on Sunday. We talked about last week how the Lions had a legitimate Super Bowl case, and they proved on Sunday that might have been a little too early to make that call, because the Ravens absolutely put in work on Detroit on Sunday in a 38-6 blowout. That's the second Lions L. This is a good Lions team, and they beat them handedly. And my major takeaway from this is that Lamar could be putting together an MVP campaign right now, or could have a really solid case behind Mahomes. So he went 24-27 on Sunday with 357 yards, 3 passing tuds, and a rushing tud. So absolutely elite. He had a 77.8 completion percentage, which is his highest mark since Week 5 of 2021, 2 years ago. And he's only done that 2 other times in his career with at least 25 pass attempts. So Lamar is having a great campaign so far through the air. Mark Andrews had 2 tuds in this game. Zay Flowers and OBJ got involved with 9 catches all put together. And
even Bateman had some moments in the game too.
Yeah, for sure. And the concern early on was, not even early on, just a few weeks ago, this receiver core was dropping everything that was thrown its way. Zay Flower had a compilation of drops just a few weeks ago, or a week ago at this point. But this receiving core, it seems like it's finally putting it together, and Lamar's taking advantage, so you gotta love that. This looks like a completely new offense, and that's no secret to anybody under the new OC there. Monken is absolutely making things work through the air, which was the big crack on this offense for so many years with Greg Roman at the helm calling the plays. So what'd you see from Baltimore on Sunday that makes them a legitimate contender in the AFC?
This should be a 7-0 team. They should have never lost to Pittsburgh at Pittsburgh. Yep. If Lamar doesn't throw that interception in the end zone, they get the 3 points. Who knows what happens from there. They should have never lost to the Colts. They should have beat the Colts. I know it was shitty weather back September 23rd, 24th. Should have won that game too. This should be an undefeated team. They've had injuries, which they do every single year, and they overcome them. This is exactly what I expected. If you go back to our Blitz Pod power rankings at the beginning of the year, we had Baltimore ahead of Buffalo, and I think we got a lot of crap for that from a lot of fans. And 7 weeks in, I think Baltimore is definitely head and shoulders ahead of Buffalo, and I think this is I don't think they're the best team in the AFC, but I think they're clearly, in my opinion, the second best team. And the other reason is because of their defense. I think some of these teams have really good offenses, but I feel like they struggle on defense. The Chiefs have a great defense, so I can't take anything away from them. But you look at the Dolphins, you look at the Bills, you look at some of these other teams in the AFC, and you got to worry about the defense. Browns have the defense, don't have the offense. Ravens kicked the shit out of them. They beat the Bengals already. I know they lost to the Steelers. Like I said, they should have won that game. But this is the team that I expected. They were my Super Bowl pick at the beginning of the year. Lamar Jackson was my MVP pick at the beginning of the year. I have $75, $50 on the Super Bowl, them to win the Super Bowl,
and
25 on Lamar
He's
to win
got
MVP.
Skin in the game.
This is a team that will be there when it's all said and done. And I think they match up wonderfully against the Chiefs because I think that they can control the clock with their running game. But as you were talking about, the completion percentage of Lamar near 80%. And if these receivers aren't dropping balls, they've got a really good receiving core. And you've got, when in doubt, go to old reliable and Mark Andrews. So I love this team. If they can get enough from Gus Edwards, they're going to be fine. If Linderbaum and Stanley can stay healthy, they're going to be, and Morgan Moses, if those three guys can stay healthy, this is going to be a team that's going to be in the AFC Championship. I will put it down right now. I know it's week 7, but this team is fucking legit.
Hell yeah, man. I mean, they're rolling like it for sure. Looks like they're on their way to an AFC Championship bid for sure. Like you mentioned at the very end there, I think the only question mark that you can throw out is this team was so reliant on the run at one point, and now you go from that to having Gus Edwards being basically the sole guy in that backfield. And we saw some work. Who's the undrafted? I think it's Keaton Mitchell. Yeah. The undrafted rookie, they liked it.
Fastest guy on their team.
Yeah, and they wow, really? That's I did not actually know that. That's wild, especially with some burners on that team, including Zay Flowers.
They've been waiting. They've been waiting for him because he was injured in the beginning of the season, and they've been waiting to utilize him. And I think you're going to see more and more of him out of the backfield. Maybe in receiving work, but maybe a few gadget plays here and there that Monken draws up. But yeah, they really like Mitchell, and I think you're going to see more and more of him as the season progresses.
For sure. And I think the Ravens are the kings of turning running back talent that you didn't see much into something that's a legitimate asset. See Justin Forsett, Alex Collins, names like this. Like, they could take guys like that and turn them into something special. They've been talking a lot about Keaton Mitchell, so he could be the guy going forward. But besides that, there's no concerns. Full steam ahead for this Ravens team in the AFC going forward.
And the AFC North, I will say, because every team in that division is 500 or above. The Bengals are 3-3, but the Steelers and Browns are both above 500, each with 2 losses. And the Ravens are right there, kind of leading the division when it comes to that. But this is we always talk about the AFC North being a good division, and it's right back again this year at being one of the best divisions in football.
Yep. And it looks like the Ravens are leading the way in that category for sure. So let's dive into our next headline from Week 7's NFL action, and it is an evaluation of the jumping the gunness that we had on the Miami Dolphins. We might have been a little too early calling the Dolphins a Super Bowl favorite. Super Bowl favorite wasn't thrown around, but one of the best teams in the NFL. I think they still definitely belong in that category, but their performance on Sunday Night Football definitely brings some cause for concern. They lost 17-31 against Philly. Now, this was in Philly, so you got to play to that home team advantage. But there were some really concerning things in this game. First of all, this Dolphins secondary was atrocious on Sunday night. Safety group, you got Javon Holland back there, and he's been okay, but this corners group has been horrendous. They had
Caillou. You heard Caillou's name a lot, which is not the best thing if you're a cornerback to have your name mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. And you heard a lot of Eli Apple too. These were the 2 guys playing major coverage on Sunday Night Football. And Eli Apple, let's start with Caillou. He allowed 8 catches, 125 yards, and a touchdown when he was in coverage. And Eli Apple didn't do much better with 8 catches, 104 yards, and a touchdown in coverage. So that was not great. They were hurt by the absence of Xavier Howard. Eli Apple's probably not playing a ton in that game if Xavier Howard's healthy. But Xavier Howard hasn't even been that great on the season. He's got a 49 coverage grade. And that's 97th out of 117 corners in the league. So he hasn't been that great this season. They went out and acquired Jalen Ramsey in the offseason, hoping that he could help out this secondary. But he's banged up right now, and it really seems like they could use him right now. Besides the cornerback struggles in that game, they really just couldn't establish the run. That's something that we've seen a lot from this Miami team throughout the first 6 weeks of the season. A combination of Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane. But Achane's banged up right now. Raheem Mostert couldn't get it going last night. But cause for concern in Miami, what are you looking at, and what can you put a finger on that brings you concerns with Miami?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on a lot of the things. I think the run game is a big issue. They're going to be getting Achan, I should say. They're going to be getting him back relatively soon. And I think Jeff Wilson, once he gets caught up to speed, they're going to be a lot better in that regard as well.
Got some snaps last
the
2
schedule,
nights ago, but yeah.
Yeah, he did. The schedule does ease up a little bit, in my opinion. You've got the Patriots next week, and then you go to Germany to play the Chiefs. Outside of that, you've got Raiders, Jets, Commanders, Titans, Jets, Cowboys, Ravens, Bills. So the end of the season definitely is going to be a little bit of a gauntlet. But between the Raiders, the Jets twice, the Commanders and Titans and Patriots, those 6 games are all very, very winnable games that they're probably going to be favored or a very, very slight underdog. The only thing I can see is at the Jets being maybe a slight underdog there. But other than that, I think that they're going to be a favorite in every one of those games. You're going to get Ramsey back. That's absolutely going to help you out as well. But I think it begs the question, is this a contender or is this a pretender? And I'm not saying necessarily for just making the playoffs. This is a team that people 5 weeks in were, after they put up 70 points on the Broncos, oh, this is a Super Bowl team. This is a team that's going to make the Super Bowl. Are they? I don't know if they are. A team that can't establish the run and doesn't play good defense, I don't know if I can trust them, in January and February when the weather gets cold. And those are the things that you have to rely on come playoff time. Also against playoff caliber opponents. That's the other thing that I really worry about. Their wins this year, they're against the Chargers week 1, which they dodged a bullet there and won that game. The Patriots, the Broncos, the Giants, and the Panthers.
Oh, wow.
Who have they really beat?
That's a great point.
They haven't really beat anybody of caliber. The 2 caliber teams that they faced, 2 teams with winning records that they faced, are the Bills and the Eagles. And they got pretty much smoked in both of those games. So I look at this team as, a 10, maybe 11-win team based on their schedule because they do have a very nice schedule. But when it comes playoff time, I can see this team being in and out within the first round. I'm not a believer in this team right now. I have been skeptical about it the entire year just because they've been blowing teams out and they've been just putting up an insurmountable amount of points that is just hard to get to.
About to say that.
But what happens when you can't? What happens when you can't score those points? What do you rely on? And we saw it in this game. I will say this: the NFL has got a huge referee problem.
Yeah, tell me about it.
This game, I can't tell you how many holds there were. The missed face mask on the side on Cedric Wilson. There was a pass interference on Darius Slay's pick that wasn't called. One of the guys, David Long, got clotheslined by an offensive lineman. There were so many missed calls. The Eagles had zero penalties against them.
Wow.
There's something that's got to be said to that. Am I saying that the Dolphins are going to win this game if some of those calls are made? I'm not. I think the Eagles were a better team. I think the Eagles deserve to win. They controlled that game. However, that's got to be corrected. And we see it week in and week out with these NFL referees just making boneheaded plays. And I'm going to go ahead and be that guy. These referees are just favoring teams that have Super Bowl odds, whether it's the Chiefs, which we've seen countless times. Sunday night game, the Sauce Gardner hold, which was absolutely atrocious. Whether it's the Eagles, whether it's the 49ers, whether it's the Bills, even the Ravens. The list goes on and on of these teams that are high-caliber teams that get the benefit of the whistle in clutch moments.
Yep.
And something's got to be done about that because it can't keep happening because it's becoming a week in and week out thing, and it's just taken away from what's happening.
Yeah.
It's taken away from what's happening on the field. But back to the original question, I've got my skepticism for sure about this Dolphins team because I don't know if they're made for playoff football.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can totally agree at this point. I mean, who they've played so far and who they've beaten, I mean, that's insanity. They just haven't beaten playoff level competition yet, and they've gotten trounced when they have. So that's those are all great points. I mean, you get all caught up in they dropped over 70 points against the Broncos. This offense is historic.
But you're not going to be playing the Broncos in playoffs,
exactly. Yep, exactly. So we'll see what Mike McDaniel can do to right the ship against elite level competition going forward in the season. So, all right, let's dive into our next headline that we got here. And it is that Mac Jones might have just saved his job in New England. I talked about last week on our trade deadline episode that Mac Jones could be headed out of town in New England, possibly end up in Las Vegas, which honestly, after this past week, Las Vegas looks even more in the market for a quarterback. But it looks like Mac Jones is going to stick around in New England as the Pats beat the Bills in epic fashion on Sunday, improving their record to 2-5. Mac Jones led a game-winning 2-minute drill that capped off by a touchdown pass from Mike Gesicki and a couple of very, very ugly gritties to cap that whole celebration off, to say the least. And this win came after reports that Bill Belichick got a preseason extension that was apparently quiet. And it wasn't really revealed to the public that he got an extension, but apparently before the season, him and Kraft agreed to an extension. So it seems like Bill's going to be here long-term, or not long-term, but he's...
Funny how that comes out now.
Yeah, it is a little weird.
Yeah, that wasn't going to come out last week.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, no. And right before the game, too. And then they go, at least they won, because that would have caused a lot of mayhem if they didn't. But yeah, it kind of felt like a PR stunt from New England for sure. But yeah, I mean, the Patriots seemed like they got back on track in this one, but especially Mac Jones. He went 25 for 30, which is super impressive, 272 yards and 2 tuds. After the game, he credited Bill O'Brien for his play calling down the stretch. He was his offensive coordinator at Bill the offensive coordinator when Mac Jones was out at Alabama?
Yeah, I believe he was, because I think I'm pretty sure Sark was gone by that point.
Yeah.
So I think Bill O'Brien was the OC at Bama 2021 and 2022. So I think it was right before Mac got there.
Okay.
Because I think Mac was a 2021 draft pick, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Let's double check that. Yep, 2021. Okay. So yeah, he was there his first year.
Okay. And the year he had most success, and the year that he got drafted in the first round. So a lot of success with Bill O'Brien in the past, and he talked about that in the post game, how he credits Bill O'Brien for his play calling down the stretch, how he called plays that worked for him in Alabama, and those plays seemed like they were working on Sunday. Now there were 0 pressures against Mac Jones in this game, which definitely helps him look a little better. But shout out to the offensive line, shout out to this Pats team. But what do you think of Mac Jones, man? Do you think he's got a solidified job in New England? I think he's going to be a starter in the league for a while. I think I've come to that conclusion. But is New England the place that he stays?
I mean, I think he saved his job probably this year. Okay. Depends on how this year goes. If they're a 4 or 5 win team, I don't know if I would bring him back. They've got the Dolphins this week, and then after that, their next 5 are Commanders, Colts, Giants, Chargers, Steelers. The only team with a winning record in that group is the Steelers. So, 5 out of the next 6 games are definitely winnable games. If they go 1-4 in those games, or even 2-3, we're going to be right back on the same train. So for now, yes, he has saved his job from Bailey Zappi or Malik Cunningham or anybody else that's going to take it from him this year. Going forward, is he the answer? I don't think so. I still am not a believer in Mac Jones. I still don't think that. And this is a guy that I touted as an MVP candidate at one point in time, because he was playing at that level. Yeah. However, I think some of that steam and luck that New England has had for so many years has kind of, done its course, and it's good to see. Yeah. It really is good to see the Patriots struggling, even though they did beat the Bills this week.
The rain is
over. They're not the same. They're not the franchise they once were. I think Mac Jones is a somewhere in between 20 to 40 range when it comes to quarterbacks. Wow. So he's right on that fringe of, when he plays well like he did, he's right in that 20 to 23 range. When he plays how he did against the Raiders or the Cowboys or the Saints, he's not even a starting quarterback at that point in time.
That's fair.
So it varies week to week, and you're going to have that with a young quarterback. I get that. He does have composure, which I do like. I just don't. He doesn't show me flashes of, I'm like, damn, okay, that's what I was expecting. That guy's got talent. You see that from guys like like Herbert or Josh Allen early on, you're like, damn, they make mistakes, but damn, they show some things that makes them an NFL quarterback. I don't see that from Mac Jones. I haven't seen that yet. I put him in that same category as Brock Purdy.
I was just about to toss that out as a comparison to you. Who do you think is better? Brock Purdy, and especially with how Brock Purdy's played these past few games. Who would you rather have as your starter, Brock Purdy or Mac Jones? Because I think you're right. Like, Mac Jones doesn't have the talent that those guys have.
It's a question because like Purdy has been in big moments of big games in the sense of like playing in the NFC Championship. I know he got hurt, or playing in the playoffs, or playing on a team that's a winning team. So he's got that exposure already. So
Mac
that's
Jones
why
got
I
a
feel
team
like
in the
I lean with him. He did.
Won that division.
Didn't do too well in that playoff game,
no, he did not.
I would lean Purdy, but yeah, that's a guy that was a 7th round, Mr. Irrelevant pick compared to a guy that was 14th or 15th overall in the first round. So one's making a lot more than the other, and one should be producing a lot more than the other, and they're not. And the fact that we're even having a conversation about who's better shows that Mac Jones maybe isn't the best caliber quarterback in the league.
That's fair. Yeah. I'd put him somewhere between 15 and 20, I think, on a consistent basis. I mean, when you're right. When he's off, he is off. But just on a week-to-week basis, I think I would put him between 15 and 20, which is right around where I would put Brock Purdy on a week-to-week basis. So I think it's really close. But the talent of Mac Jones is better than Brock Purdy. I mean, Brock Purdy doesn't make the same mistakes. He doesn't make mistakes at an elite level.
Well, the talent around Brock Purdy is a lot better, which is why it's also hard. Because, all right, let's hypothetical. If you threw Mac Jones in the San Fran offense and you threw Brock Purdy in the New England offense, I still think you're probably getting about the same results that you're getting from each team.
Okay. All right. Respect. That's interesting you throw that out because they probably realistically should have gone Mac Jones at 3 when they traded up and end up going Trey Lance. So we could be looking at a completely different picture if that happens. But Mac Jones lives to fight another day as a New England Patriot, so love to see that. All right, so we got the next headline from Week 7's NFL action, and it is that the Falcons are legit and seem to be the front runners in the NFC South right now. They take over the division lead with a last-minute win against Tampa Bay this past week. They beat the Bucs 16-13 on a last-minute field goal from Younghoe Koo. I've got him in every single one of my fantasy leagues. He is my destiny kicker for a long time, but gotta love to see that. But the Falcons just keep doing what they've been doing all year. This offensive line has been balling out, so they continue to establish an elite running game behind that. Despite not having Bijan Robinson, which was the big story in fantasy from Sunday.
Yeah, man. Fuck Arthur Smith. I am so sick of that guy. Are you kidding me? You can't say Saturday night that this man's dealing with a sickness or migraines or headache, whatever it is, and then even before the game, like, you can't deliver any of that information. Like, give me the information so I know. And then if you tell me that and then I still start him, that's on me. Yeah. But if you don't give us any information and then at halftime you're like, oh yeah, he just hasn't been feeling well. What? Yeah. Where was this before the game?
I mean, this is definitely conspiracy theory tinfoil hat-ish. But I think there might have... I saw a report that he got suspended for blowing vape smoke in somebody's face. That's not true.
I saw that. That was a parody.
Yeah, I know. But I think it just doesn't make any sense. Because when you asked Arthur Smith about it, he was super short. Like, extremely short. Doesn't want to elaborate on the situation at all. And then you ask Bijan...
Well, because you need... But if he is sick, then like he doesn't want to elaborate because he fucked up and he doesn't want this to get scrutinized any more than what it is.
That's fair. It's just like when you ask Bijan,
he's going to dodge every bullet he can.
No, that's totally fair, especially when it comes to the guy that you drafted so early in the first round. Despite all that, weird stuff going on in Atlanta with Bijan not playing, but despite that, they are still establishing an elite running game. They're 5th in rush attempts per game right now, and they still had 38 combined attempts without Bijan in the game. You saw Cordell Patterson get involved in that one, so that gotta love to see that. Cordell Patterson still has a job in the National Football League. Insane. But yeah, and to cap it all off, I mean, this defense has really stepped up. They got the highest graded run defense in the league on PFF. They're 5th in pressure rate right now. And Jesse Bates I mean, he was an amazing free agent acquisition. There was questions on whether or not he was going to take his success from Cincinnati and translate it over to somewhere else. Those questions have been put to bed so far this year. I mean, he's been the highest graded safety on PFF in the entire league, so you got to love that. But what are you seeing out of the Falcons right now that makes you believe they are legitimate contenders in this NFC and are probably going to win the division?
Their schedule. The best quarterback they face this year is Kirk Cousins. The rest of their schedule, ready for this?
Oh, God.
Titans, Vikings, Cardinals, Saints, Jets, Bucks, Panthers, Colts, Bears, Saints.
Oh!
They play I don't know if they play a winning team the rest of the season.
Oh, my God. How is that
Titans
happen?
under 500. Vikings, Cardinals, Saints, Bucks, Colts. They don't play a team above 500 the rest of the season. And their schedule so far this year has been Panthers, Packers, Lions, Jags, Texans, Commanders, Bucks. So other than the Lions and Jags, they haven't faced anybody that's really that good either.
Yeah. Wasn't that Minnesota's case last year? Like, they didn't play anybody all season? And I'm not throwing shade. I'm just, like, trying to find a comparison.
No, the Vikings just won a lot of really close games. They
true.
played a couple of decent teams, but for the most part, they won close games, and that's really what their MO was. But the Falcons, that's why I consider them a favorite in this division, because they don't really play anybody. Now, back to this game. Ritter fumbled going into the end zone on the 1-yard line. Then he fumbled again on the 1-yard line, and then he had another interception in the red zone. They could have blown the Bucks out. I mean, this really and truly should have been, a 27-13 type of game if you really want to look into it, if you're looking by a yard difference, basically. The Bucks don't impress me at all. I'm off the Baker train. This was a team that was 3-0, I believe, and going into that Monday night game with Philly, and then the wheels have just fallen completely off, and the brakes have been pumped with this team. I do like what I'm seeing from the Falcons' defense, though. The defense looks really good. I am impressed by that. They're going to control the run. It's just so hard for me to trust Desmond Ritter, man. You're talking about this guy going into December and January and winning meaningful games when he can't throw the ball more than 10 yards down the field. It's just tough for me to trust that. But, hey, I mean, if you've got the defense, you can get there. And with the way the schedule is shaping up, yeah, they've got a bunch of winnable games left on the schedule to get to 10, maybe 11 wins. And in this division, you might only need 9 to win the damn division, because it's them, the Saints, the Bucks, and the Panthers, and none of those teams are good, and all of those teams have major flaws. So I like where the Falcons are. I like where their schedule's shaping up. If they can get Bijan into the game and get him and utilize him more, I think that'll prove to be a little bit more of an explosive offense. They're getting Kyle Pitts the ball more, which is finally it's happening.
Yes.
I picked him up 3 weeks ago, and now all of a sudden he's killing it. So I definitely think I'm the reason that his career is skyrocketing.
A bunch of people, thank you. Shout out, Tyler.
But yeah, I look at this schedule and I look at the team that they've got, and you're talking about Jesse Bates and just the defense as a whole. It's going to be the backbone of this team the rest of the way. And if you've got a clutch kicker, that can be very, very pivotal. When you're relying on the defense and run game to control clock, to get stops, you're going to be in closely contested games. And if you've got that kicker, that's all that you need sometimes. So, I like the direction that this team is going. But, my God, Arthur Smith, I'm letting it go this time. But get your shit together.
What are you going to do the next time if he doesn't let you know that Bijan has a
I'm going to take a trip. I'm going to take a trip down to Hotlanta and show him what's up. No, you can't do anything. That's the thing that sucks so much.
Yeah.
But what they've done so far this year, I've been very impressed. I know Jaden liked them a lot coming into this season. He had picked them as the winner of this NFC South, and so far, it's looking pretty damn good.
Yeah, for sure. And, I mean, you mentioned Pitts bouncing back. Drake London seems like he's becoming an alpha in this offense. I mean, I think he went for like 5 catches, 80 yards on Sunday, but the week before,
which is all you need with Desmond Ridder at quarterback, because you might only get 4 or 5 chances to catch a damn ball.
Exactly. Like the fact that he can put that up with Desmond Ridder playing quarterback is beyond me. And Drake London put up over 100 yards against the Commanders secondary. So I love it. Love is a strong word. I really do like this Atlanta Falcons team, and we'll see what they can do the rest of the way. So
I just think that if they get to the playoffs, they're one and done. Yeah. I don't see them really doing much in the playoffs.
It could be the start of a run.
Getting there's the main thing. You get there, crazy things can happen in the playoffs. So
exactly, and this is a young team. So if you get to the playoffs this year and you don't get past the first round, I mean, this is a team that hasn't made the playoffs since Matty Ice was in town. So, I mean, you're making steps in the right direction as a franchise for sure. So we'll see what happens the rest of the year. Okay, next headline that we got is, it seems like we're shaping up for a Super Bowl rematch that we had this last year. It looks like it's shaping up to be the same situation this year. Chiefs, Eagles, both balling out, both doing their thing. Both got impressive wins on Sunday, and I mean, it sucks. It doesn't suck that we're going to see this again. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of storylines the first time that I'm excited to dive into if we do get a Super Bowl rematch, but it's definitely shaping up to be like that right now. The Eagles further established themselves on Sunday Night Football after beating the Dolphins handedly. We talked about that earlier. And the Chiefs in themselves got an impressive victory against the Chargers, 31-17 in that one. Last week, I talked in depth about how the Chiefs, they're redefining their offense, they're establishing their run game. Pacheco is the best running back he's had since Kareem Hunt, Jamal Charles, LaShawn McCoy type, company. And of course, in Andy Reid classic fashion, he completely flips the script this past week. They had a season-low rushing attempts, season-high in pass attempts. Mahomes went 424 with 4 TDs. And, I mean, Andy Reid's just a chameleon. He will continue to adjust week to week based on what teams are adjusting for with the Chiefs. I've tried to argue against the Chiefs for 3 years. I said that they couldn't do it without Tyreek Hill. They could. I said that Travis Kelce was getting too old. He's not. I'm done downing this team at this point. I think you can almost pencil him in to get back to the Super Bowl, especially with the script writers supporting this whole Taylor Swift narrative. But, I mean, the Eagles did their thing. I know I didn't talk about them too much, but they certainly impressed on Sunday Night Football. A.J. Brown proved he's an alpha out of receivers in the National Football League right now. But are you leaning towards a rematch in this coming Super Bowl? Do you think this is likely?
I mean, right now you have to say that, especially with the struggles from San Fran and Brock Purdy in particular. You gotta like the Eagles' chances to get back. The one thing that concerns me with the Eagles is Jalen Hurts is really prone to turnovers. He fumbled it again this week, threw a pick 6 this week. I think he's got 9 turnovers or 8 interceptions and 10, 11 turnovers already this year, which is a huge problem to have because that's the one thing that can derail this team is the turnovers. If they don't turn the ball over, I don't know who beats them with that defense, especially that front. And then you've got that offensive line. If it stays healthy, those receivers like you're talking about with A.J. Brown. You didn't even mention Dallas Goedert, who's a really good tight end as well. You got the run game now with Swift that you didn't have last year. It's a really, really good team. I think on a collision course for these two to meet again is definitely the possibility. I think the one thing that I've been touching on since preseason with this Chiefs team, and I'll continue to touch on it, is their defense. This is the best defense Patrick Mahomes has had since he's been there. They gave up 0 points to the Chargers in the second half of that game. Also, that game was at 41 points at halftime, 24-17. I had the over 48.5. They got 7 points in the second half. How do you get 7 points between those two offenses? So awful beat for me. Awful beat. I did have Chiefs minus 5.5, so it ended up evening out. But the defense is just absolutely incredible. The only loss they've had this year, their receiver, we could have went out there and caught more passes than those receivers did in that game against the Lions week 1. Chris Jones was out of that game. Travis Kelce was out of that game. That's the only game that they've lost. They've won every single game since then.
It was a close game.
Oh, that's right. And that's right. They beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl last year. They are the best team in football. I'm tired of people saying that. I don't care if it's a different year. Most of the same pieces are still there. It's relatively the same exact teams. The only thing that the Chiefs don't have is Juju.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're missing him that much, to be
Rice
honest.
Is better than Juju.
Rashee Rice looks great. Oh, what a pickup that was in my one league. I'm very, very happy with that.
Both,
the other guy that they just got back from injury, I can't remember his name, the defensive lineman. Not from injury, he was suspended for 6 games for substance abuse. I believe that's what it was.
Will find it.
But they got him back this week, and he looked incredible this week. He had, I think, 1 sack and was able to get multiple. Amenahu, that's who it was, Charles Amenahu. They got him back, and he looks great. Now, one of the question marks is Nick Bolton is out. He's injured. He's got surgery. He's going to be out for, I think, 2 months. That is huge because he is kind of like their quarterback of their defense. He plays that middle linebacker role great. I think he's 2nd or 3rd year out of Mizzou, so he's kind of a local guy too. He's starting to find
that defense.
That's going to be a big miss. Yeah, that's going to be a big miss. But other than that, this defense is legit. And if you've got that defense and we got Patrick Mahomes on the other side, I think you're going to be in pretty good shape. The question is, if the Chiefs are back in the Super Bowl, do they kick Usher out of the halftime show and let Taylor Swift perform? You got to start raising that question. Right?
Taylor Swift gets revenge for getting kicked off stage by Kanye and goes ahead and kicks off stage Usher at the Super Bowl halftime.
That would be funny. But I agree with you. I would say these two are definitely the favorites. After talking about all that and the Chiefs being the best team in football, I think they have less likely of a chance to go to the Super Bowl than the Eagles just because of how good the AFC is. I talk about the Ravens. We're going to talk about the Bills in a little while. They're in that category. The Dolphins are in that category. Even the Bengals, don't forget about them. They make the playoffs. You know that they're going to be a team, and they've had the Chiefs number in the past as well. So the crazy part to think about is this, too. If the Chiefs do make the championship, it would be their 6th straight AFC championship. The Astros just made their 7th straight LCS. 2 dynasties that are going on right in front of our eyes in 2 different sports that we really don't talk about, and I don't think we appreciate all that much right now either. So just something to keep an eye on. And if the Chiefs host that game, that'll be their 6th game that they've hosted a championship game, which is a record that I don't think will ever be broken.
I mean, this is a dynasty happening right in front of our eyes. That's for sure. Astros 7th straight. I mean, I just hate the Astros in the same way that people hate the Chiefs right now. Just people are going to hate on success. I was one of those guys.
Yeah, but at least the Chiefs don't cheat.
That is a great point.
That we know of. That
would be cheating scandal incoming for Kansas City. But yeah, I think this is definitely a fast track to a rematch of last year's Super Bowl. Last thing I'll mention before we move on. Just yesterday, the Eagles made a trade for the Titans safety Kevin Byard. This comes after some significant secondary injuries going on in Philly. They had James Bradbury going out to safety at one point a couple weeks ago against the Commanders. So they're really banged up in the secondary. They go out and get Kevin Byard to help with that problem. And Kevin Byard, I mean, he's an all-pro. So he's really going to help this team a lot. And Howie Roseman Is Howie Roseman the only general manager in the league actually doing his job? Is my question. Because he makes so many trades.
Man. Brett Veach does a really good job in Kansas City. Yeah. Funny enough, that's why we're talking about both of these teams. But yeah, it's they traded Terrell Edmonds in a 5th and a 6th or something like that for Kevin Byard, who's basically an all-pro safety. I mean, this guy has been one of the best safeties in the league for the last 4 or 5 years, and they get him for next to nothing. I mean, they got A.J. Brown and Kevin Byard for a 5th and a 6th, and Terrell Edmonds and Traylon Burks and Jeremy Ruckert. I mean, they just ripped the Titans off in back-to-back trades. And what are the Titans doing? I mean, that's the other question that you got to bring up is who else are the Titans going to sell? Derrick Henry? Got to be up there as a question. DeAndre Hopkins, maybe?
And then Jefferson.
Some of these guys that are veterans.
He could be dealt. We'll see what happens.
There's definitely some question marks going on in Tennessee right now. And this is what I said coming into this year, that I was not sold on Tennessee whatsoever. And what have they done this year that's impressed me? Pretty much nothing. I have no idea how they got the win that they got over the Bengals, just blowing them out. And then I think they beat the Chargers as well in overtime. But they have not
I
looked
hate to
good,
take my
like at all.
flowers.
I have no
I
trust
hate
in
to
them.
take my flowers, but I was pretty low on the Titans coming into this year, and I mean
I
it's the
was too.
Vrabel
I was
effect.
too. I was low on them last year, and I'm low on them again this year. I think I said that the Texans would finish ahead of them this year, and here we are. 7 weeks in, and it's looking
That's a
pretty
good
damn
point.
good for that
Let's go,
prediction.
man.
Um, but yeah, with the Kevin Byard trade, that's the reason why Jaden wants to put the Eagles ahead of them. But Chiefs beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl. I'm gonna keep saying it. I'm gonna keep saying it, and I'm not gonna stop. And there's nothing that you can say that's gonna deter me away from that because basically the same exact pieces are there again this year. So why should I think
Yeah,
anything
for
else?
sure. And they beat him with a fully healthy secondary. Like I mentioned to Jaden, like the reason they're trading for Byard is because they have nobody in the secondary right now. So
Yeah,
are you really getting better? I mean, you're trading for a huge name who's a great football player, but with how depleted you are right now, you're not even getting better. So Chiefs are my number one team.
Eli Ricks might be a guy to look at. I was reading a
That's a good point.
statistic from him earlier today that was talking about how has allowed like a 46.3 passer rating against him this year. And I don't think Tyreek Hill caught one ball going against him in solo coverage. So an undrafted free agent out of Alabama. And if you really want to dive even deeper than that, he was a former 5-star coming out of high school going into Alabama. So this is a guy that has had the talent and the spotlight throughout his entire career, and he was just an undrafted free agent because he didn't have that good of a final year at Bama. But once again, Howie Roseman just doing his job and doing
I
it
mean, look at
well.
Swift right now, man. Like he traded for Swift for a bag of chips. Like I don't. He's the only GM that seems like he's doing his job outside of Veach, who is the Kansas City Chiefs general manager, and that's why these teams will be going to the Super Bowl for a second year in a row. So. All right, I'm excited to dive into this last one with you. We've kind of alluded to the fact that we were going to talk about this at some point over the past few weeks, but it is officially time to panic in Buffalo right now. They let Mac Jones and the Pats beat them on a game-winning drive, as we talked about earlier. That brings them to 4-2 on the season, and it doesn't look like it's going to be great going forward. They've got the 6th hardest remaining strength of schedule, and I was looking down the schedule. We can read it off if you'd like, but they're probably favored in 2 or 3 matchups maybe. I mean, at this point with how they've been playing, it's going to be tough for them going forward. And Josh Allen, I mean, I can totally get where you want to say that Josh Allen has been good this year. Like in comparison to most quarterbacks, yes, Josh Allen has been good. But in comparison to what we're used to seeing from Josh Allen, I feel like we're starting to drift back towards what he was at the beginning of his career, which was a mistake-ridden, like risky quarterback. And I think that we've seen a lot of that so far this year. He has 7 picks on the season, which is tied for second most in the league. He's thrown at least 1 pick in all but 2 games this year. He has more turnover-worthy plays than, let's read them off here, Dak Prescott, Zach Wilson, Kenny Pickett, Baker Mayfield, and Deshaun Watson. So that is not great company to be in. And he has the lowest PFF overall offensive grade since 2019, which, as I mentioned, that was really before Josh Allen became Josh Allen. So serious concerns in Buffalo right now. This defense has also had its struggles. It's struggled specifically against the run game. They didn't have Ed Oliver in this past game, so they're looking forward to getting him back. But they need to get Von Miller ramped up. I mean, there's a lot of question marks, and I'm excited to hear your spiel on why Buffalo should be slamming the panic button right now.
You're depending on a 37-year-old, 36-year-old, whatever he is, Von Miller, to come back and save your defense. You just lost Tre'Davious White.
Great point.
Milano's still hurt as well. I don't like this team at all. I coming into the season, I put $25 on them to miss the playoffs. I was very, very vocal about just not being good. I said that this is a team, every single year, they've gotten worse as far as where they've ended the season the previous year to where they were the next year. It's either been the same or it's been worse. And what gives me the confidence to say that this is still a Super Bowl caliber team? They've done nothing in the playoffs. I also think there's a disconnect, and I've been saying that from the end of that Bengals game when they got blown out in the playoffs all the way until now, there is something chemistry-wise that is just not there.
Bingo.
Josh Allen
Ding, ding,
and
ding.
either
Yeah.
Diggs. Diggs will have his moments, but then he'll also have his boneheaded moments too, where him and Allen aren't on the same page. Gabe Davis had one catch this game, I think.
Yeah.
The tight ends have been decent, but not great, and there's still no run game. James Cook is a receiving back, and I think that's what we're seeing so far. Is you cannot rely on him to hand the ball off to him down in goal-to-go situations. They're still a pass-happy team, and that's what they're always going to be. And nobody wants to talk about it, but Sean McDermott needs to be on the freaking hot seat, man. Like, if Josh Allen's on the hot seat and everybody else is, why is Sean McDermott's name not up there? I don't think he's that good of a coach. If you've got all this talent, how are you not putting up better results? They're 4-3 now, and we've seen this. They can beat the best of the best. They kick the shit out of the Dolphins, even though we've got our question marks about the Dolphins now. But then they lose games to, the Jets in week 1, the Patriots this week. You got to start to wonder, is this team I'm not going to say is it time to rebuild, but they've put all their chips in, and I don't think it's paying off right now. I had them ranked as the 15th best team coming into this year, and based on their record, that's basically exactly where they are. Is they're a mediocre middle of the pack team in this loaded AFC.
Exactly. Like I was talking about Josh Allen, like he's been a middle of the pack quarterback so far. I mean, in some respects, but it's like that's not what we're expecting from Josh Allen. He's a top 3 guy. Like every time I see him on TV, he's on the bench, looking down on his iPad because he's disappointed in something that he just did. Like you mentioned the chemistry thing. Like I think that he feels uncomfortable on his own team. I think he's scared to make those mistakes. He just reminds me of like a first to second year Josh Allen, that was making a lot of mistakes and just kind of didn't seem like he was getting the roll of things. And I mean, I always have this picture in my head. You mentioned it, like Diggs putting his hand up in the snow and Josh Allen just looking down at the iPad. Like, it seems like that has happened a lot this year. Not Diggs coming out and specifically bashing Allen, but that chemistry is just off in Buffalo right now. And as you mentioned, like, you try to rely on a how old is he? 38-year-old Von Miller?
He's 36, 37, something like that, yeah. And you've already lost one of your focal points with Trey White. Milano got hurt as well. Like you said, Ed Oliver was out. We know that Jordan Poyer's gone through his fair share of injuries as well. So if you're going to turn the ball over, you have to have the defense to hold the team. Like, for instance, Jalen Hurts has a ton of turnovers this year, but what does he have that he can at least rely on is the defense to bail him out. Josh Allen doesn't have that. So as much as I want to put it on him, it's also the defense as well. And if you look at their schedule, they've still got at the Bengals, at the Eagles, they've got at the Chiefs, and they've also got the Cowboys.
It's a tough schedule.
Those are 4 games that I am circling right now. They're going to go 1-3. They might go 0-4 in those games. 3 of those being on the road, I think, is a big question mark. They've also got the Jets left. They've also got the Patriots again. They've also got at the Chargers, and they've got at the Dolphins.
Yeah.
There's some tough games. What's going to happen is they're going to play here in about 48 hours on Thursday Night Football, and they're going to kick the shit out of the Buccaneers. And everybody's going to be like, oh, the Bills are back in the talks for Super Bowl contender, and this is the Bills team we thought of. It's not going to change my opinion. It's just like in week 2.
Yep.
They kicked the shit out of the Raiders, and everybody's like, oh, they're back. And then they beat the Commanders. Oh, this is the Bills team we thought. And then they beat the Dolphins, and I was like, okay, but let's wait. Let's see, because I didn't really fully trust the Dolphins all that much. And then they went to London, lost to the Jags, and they should have lost to the Giants.
Yes.
They should have lost that game on Sunday Night Football. There was a hold on Darren Waller on the untimed down from the 1-yard line that was not called. They should have lost that game. And if they had lost that game and they were 3-4, I can't even imagine what the talks would be right now. McDermott's got to be gone. They've lost 3 straight, 2 of those at home
Von
to teams that aren't that
down
great.
For the season because, you don't even want to bring
Diggs is going to be traded. Yep. It's everything would be in the talks. So they're 4-3. They're still in line to make the playoffs. But if you're a Bills fan, you've even started. as a fan, you always want to have that optimism. You always want to have that glass half full mindset. Like, oh, on paper, this is a team that should be there at the end. We can compete with any team in football, yada, yada, yada. But even as a Bills fan, you've got to start to question this a little bit, that maybe this team is not as good as we once thought they were, or what's missing type of deal. And I think it's just a chemistry. I agree. I think it's a chemistry thing. And I think that with the missing pieces on the defense, man, teams are going to be able to put up some points against them. And if Josh Allen's turning the ball over, it's not good. The last 3 weeks, he has accounted for one first half touchdown. One. So it's not only, we used to see this roller coaster of Josh Allen, like 1 game great or 2 games great, 1 game bad. We're seeing it in games now where it's like first half bad, second half great, or first half great, second half bad. I mean, look at that Giants game. They were awful. The Patriots game, they were awful. The Bills game, they were awful. I mean, the Jags game, they were awful. This is a team that is just going to keep going the roller coaster. And when you get into playoff football, you can't have those roller coasters.
No.
You have to play your most consistent, fundamentally sound, turnover-proof football in order to win games. And if you're not doing that, you're going to get the brakes blown off of you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's time to panic in Buffalo, to say the least. Like you said, you can't throw it all on Josh Allen. That's not what I'm trying to do. But it's just like, it's not what we're used to seeing out of Josh Allen. This is an aging defense. I mean, you got, not only do you have Von Miller, but you have Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. You're relying on them as a safety duo. And that's been one of, if not the greatest safety duo in football for a long time. But for a long time, they're old. They're starting to get past their prime if they're not already there. So definitely, and you mentioned the running game. They lost Damian Harris, who they paid in the offseason, and it was shaping up to be like, okay, James Cook will probably get most of the passing work. He'll probably get most of the third down work. Damian Harris will be your in-between-the-tackles guy. Now you don't even have that. Latavius Murray is getting a ton of work, who probably should belong on somebody's practice squad, as opposed to getting like real minutes for the Buffalo Bills, who are a Super Bowl contender, or as we thought. So they need to figure something out. I know they brought in Fournette for a workout at some point. So they need to figure something out. I mean, there's a lot of question marks, and that's why we're starting to slam the panic button in Buffalo.
And there's no coming back from, Milano fractured his leg. He's out for the year. Tre'Davious White, he's out for the year as well. They lost their defensive tackle, Daquan Jones, as well. Probably not as significant. But those two, between Milano and White, those are two of your quarterbacks of your defense, and they're not coming back this year.
No.
Like, you are stuck without them for the rest of the year. And from what I've seen the last couple of weeks, this defense has shown a lot of big gaps and a lot of big holes. Von Miller coming back, yeah, that'll probably help you out. Him and Greg Russo will be a very nice tandem. You get Ed Oliver back, that's going to be good as well. But there's some holes now that you were not expecting that you now have, and I think that, it's part of the game.
Yeah,
we see it. Year in and year out in the NFL, devastating injuries completely derail teams' chances, but it is just a part of the game, and unfortunately for the Bills, it's coming at probably the worst time. And like I said, they're going to beat the Bucs, and everybody's going to hop back on. But I'm not sold on this team at all. I'm not sold until they beat a team, even on the road. Like, I need to see them win a big road game, like against the Bengals or the Eagles or the Chiefs that they've got coming up in the next 6 to 8 weeks. Win one of those games, and you got my eyes, you've got my attention. But until then, I'm still believing that this is not a team that is going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. This is going to, we're going to get blown up in the comments like, oh, panic time in Buffalo, ha ha ha, look what they just did on Thursday Night Football when this video comes out. But then the real litmus test starts, like you just mentioned, when they play Cincy in 2 weeks on the road. They're only favored by a point in that game right now. So I think Cincy might even be favored for a point. I might have been looking at it wrong. But it's going to be a close game in Cincy nonetheless. So we'll see what happens as we head down the road for the rest of the season. But I think that just about does it for our Week 7 takeaways. This week we got our preview episode coming in a couple of days from now. But I was hyped to do this with you, man. Hyped to watch another Game 7 of baseball tonight. We got the NLDS wrapping up, and then, or not, NLCS.
CS.
Yeah, and then we got the World Series going on. So exciting times of baseball, and even more exciting times of football. So we'll catch you later. Peace!